At Riverside Correctional Facility, time didn't tick, it dragged. The days blurred together like a fog that never lifted, marked only by the clanging of steel doors, the shuffle of boots down concrete corridors, and the occasional fight that broke out over a spilled tray or a stolen cigarette. For Derek Miles, prison wasn't just a sentence. It was a slow, grinding erasure of everything that had once made him human. At 34, Derek had already spent 2 years of a 10-year sentence for armed robbery. He rarely got visitors, never received calls. He'd stopped hoping for letters a long time ago. His world had shrunk to the size of his cell. Concrete walls, a rusted bunk, and the soft hum of fluorescent lights that never quite shut off. He didn't think much of himself anymore. Just another number. Another face behind glass. So when a prison staffer slid a plain white envelope through the slot in his cell door, Derek stared at it for a long moment like it might explode. He hadn't signed up for anything. He didn't even remember filling out the stupid pen pal form. Maybe he had, months ago, just to shut the social worker up. But there it was, a letter. It was from someone named Riley Monroe. The handwriting was clean, slightly slanted, almost elegant. The letter wasn't dramatic or flowery. It didn't talk about God or redemption. Just a simple introduction from a woman living in Atlanta who said she'd picked his name off a list. Randomly, she claimed, but then added, "I don't think anything in life is truly random." She wrote, "Maybe we both just needed someone to talk to." Derek read it 3 times. There was something different about this one. He wasn't sure what. Maybe it was how quiet the words felt. Not trying too hard. Not fake. Just honest. So, for reasons he didn't quite understand, he wrote back. It took him the whole damn night. He hadn't written a real letter in years. He scratched out more lines than he kept. Prison had stripped his vocabulary down to grunts and curse words, but something inside him refused to send back junk. He wanted to say thank you. He wanted to sound like someone worth writing to. Didn't think anyone would ever write me. Around here, days feel like rubber bands stretched too far. Any word from the outside, it's like breathing fresh air. And to his surprise, Riley wrote back. Every week, sometimes more. She told him about her life, her small 1-bedroom apartment, her job as a freelance graphic designer, her love of old black and white movies. She had a cat named Bishop and said she listened to jazz when she couldn't sleep. Derek found himself waiting for her letters the way he used to wait for Christmas as a kid. Her words painted pictures in his mind, not of sex or escape, but of peace, normalcy, of a life that didn't reek of bleach and fear and men yelling through bars at 3 a.m. He started telling her things, real things, about his childhood in Decatur, the night his older brother was gunned down in a convenience store parking lot, about the way his mother used to sing Sam Cooke while scrubbing the kitchen floor, about the dreams he'd had before everything went sideways. Riley never judged him. She just listened. Through ink and paper, she became more real than anyone he'd met inside those walls. And maybe, without even meaning to, she became everything. By month 3, Derek had memorized Riley's handwriting, the way she curled her R's, the tiny heart she sometimes added at the end of her name when she was teasing him. Each envelope felt like a lifeline, and each letter inside, 5, 6 pages long, became a window to a world he hadn't touched in years. They started calling each other by nicknames. She was Red, because in one photo she sent, her hair caught the sunset just right and glowed like embers. He was Bear, because she said his words were rough but kind, like someone who'd been hurt but still tried to protect people. Every Tuesday, he waited for the mail cart like a starving man waits for a meal. And when her envelope showed up, crisp and white, smelling faintly of paper and dreams, he'd carry it back to his bunk like it was gold. The letters changed him. For the first time in years, Derek stopped thinking of himself as a convict. In Riley's world, he was more. A man with thoughts, humor, pain, kindness. She saw parts of him he'd long forgotten were there. "I don't care what you did," she once wrote. "You're not the worst thing you've ever done, Derek. People forget that, but I won't." Some nights, he'd lie in bed and reread her words under the weak glow of the hallway light, his fingers tracing the creases of the paper. He started dreaming again, not of escape, but of after, of walking with her in the park she talked about, of eating takeout on her balcony, of hearing her voice. God, he wanted to know what her voice sounded like. "Is it soft?" he wrote once. "Do you speak slow or fast when you're excited? Do you laugh through your nose or from your belly? I bet you laugh a lot. Your letters feel like laughter." In December, everything changed. She sent a photo, a real one, not a filtered selfie, just her sitting cross-legged on a hardwood floor, wearing a worn sweater and leggings. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. Barefoot. Real. She smiled, not like someone posing for the camera, but like someone looking at someone they loved. It undid him. He stared at it for hours. Taped it above his bed. The guys in the block teased him at first, calling her his magazine wife, but when they saw how serious he was, they backed off. One even asked to borrow a stamp so he could try the pen pal thing himself. "She the real deal?" Derek didn't even hesitate. "She's my girl," he said. By spring, the letters were filled with dreams. Plans. Wishes. Futures. Riley talked about visiting once he was eligible for family visits. She wrote about cooking for him, teaching him to paint, sleeping in late on Sundays. Derek talked about a cabin he'd one day rent by a lake he remembered from childhood. No traffic, no noise, just them. She sent more photos. One in a sundress by a field of flowers. One holding a mug on her balcony in winter. Always the same smile. The same soft eyes. He never once questioned who she was. To him, she was already home. And then, in late July, he did something he never thought he'd do behind bars. He asked her to marry him. The letter took him 4 tries. The first draft sounded too desperate. The second, too poetic. The third, too scared. But the fourth? It was raw, honest. "I know it's crazy. You're out there. I'm in here. But I need to know I have something waiting for me. Someone. I want to build a life with you, Riley. Whatever that looks like. I want you to be my wife." The reply took 2 weeks. The longest 2 weeks of his life. And when the envelope finally came, it wasn't just a letter. Inside was a delicate silver ring, on a chain, since she knew he couldn't wear it properly inside. The letter simply said, "Yes, 1,000 times yes. I'll wait as long as it takes." Derek wept that night, quietly, face turned to the wall. It was the first time in a decade that he believed in forever. And yet, just beneath the joy, something else lingered. A pause, a hesitation. In her last few letters, Riley had started to sound different. Not less loving, never that, but more anxious, more guarded, as if something unspoken hung between the lines. "Sometimes I worry," she wrote, "that when we finally meet, something will change. That you'll look at me and not see me the same." He brushed it off, told her she was being silly, told her nothing could change how he felt. But maybe, just maybe, Derek should have asked what she was so afraid of. Because the truth, it was coming, and it would change everything. As summer faded, the temperature inside Riverside stayed the same, stale, dense, and heavy with anticipation. But for Derek, the air felt charged with something else entirely. Hope. The kind of hope you don't let yourself have in prison. The kind that only sets you up to get crushed. Because Riley was coming. She had finally said yes to the visit. It had taken months of gentle asking, then pleading through letters. At first, she made excuses, work deadlines, anxiety, a sudden illness. But Derek knew it wasn't the logistics. It was something deeper, something she wasn't saying. "I want to see you more than anything," she wrote. "But I'm afraid. You've built me up in your mind. And what if the real me disappoints you?" He had written back, furious with love. "Nothing could change how I feel. You're more real to me than anything in this place. You're the only thing keeping me human." Eventually, she agreed. "Okay, I'll come next month. First Saturday in October." Then came a softer line that stayed with him. "Please, just remember I'm nervous. Really nervous." For the next 4 weeks, Derek lived in a haze. He shaved every day, even when no one else on the block did. He washed his uniform twice a week. He even started working out again, not for intimidation, but because he wanted to look like the man she'd fallen for on paper. He reread all her letters. He memorized every photo. He played the visit over and over in his head. The smile when she walked in, the sound of her voice, the way her hand might feel in his. He imagined pressing his forehead to hers and whispering, "We made it." Across the state, Riley Monroe stood in her small bathroom, staring into the mirror, hands trembling. She had put on her favorite light blue blouse, the one that made her eyes look brighter. Her fingers lingered on the last button, as if fastening it could somehow hold her together. Her long brown hair framed a face that, today, looked more drained than usual. Pale, tired, scared. "He'll understand," she whispered to her reflection. "He has to. He loves me for me, not my body." But the fear wouldn't let go. 17 months of letters. 17 months of hope. Of building a version of herself she was proud of. But still, she hadn't told him everything. She should have done it early, when things were simple. But back then, she didn't expect it to last. It was just letters, just a stranger. Until it wasn't. Until it became love. Until the lie grew so heavy that carrying it felt like dragging chains. Riley touched the silver ring around her neck, their ring. A promise, one she wasn't sure she deserved. Her mother's voice called from outside the bathroom. "You're gonna be late, honey." "I'm coming," Riley replied, voice higher than usual. The drive to Riverside took 2 hours. Her mom, Vanessa, sat beside her in silence most of the way, stealing glances as the trees blurred past. "Are you sure about this?" Vanessa asked finally. "It's not too late to turn around." Riley's voice was steady, but her hand shook on the wheel. "I have to see him. He deserves the truth. And I need to know if what we have is real." The prison loomed ahead, gray and indifferent behind a wall of barbed wire. Vanessa pulled into the visitor lot and placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "No matter what happens in there," she said gently, "I love you. All of you." The intake process was humiliating. ID checks, pat-downs, metal detectors. A female officer hesitated when she felt something under Riley's blouse. "Medical device," Riley said quietly, offering a folded certificate. The officer raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, just nodded. But Riley saw it in her eyes, that flash of knowing. Then came a hallway, the cold walls, the waiting, the door to the visiting suite. Warden Grant, who smelled like stale coffee and wore a permanent scowl, gave her the rundown. 2 hours. No cameras. Call button only for emergencies. "Got it." She nodded. The door shut behind her with a final, echoing clank. Inside, the intimate visit room looked like a motel that had given up trying. A small table with cookies. A thermos. A bed that creaked when she brushed it with her bag. Her hands went to her chest. Her heart felt like it might shatter through her ribs. "He loves you. He'll see it. He'll understand." The lock clicked. She turned, and there he was. Derek Miles, in the flesh, taller than she imagined, his prison uniform hanging slightly off his frame, but his shoulders broad, his eyes soft. Those same eyes that stared at her from dozens of photos. only now they were real. And they were looking at her like she was the only person in the world. Riley, he breathed, as if saying her name aloud for the first time. You're here. She barely whispered. I'm here. He crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped his arms around her. The scent of cheap soap clung to his skin, but beneath it was something so human, so warm. His heart pounded against her chest. God, I've waited so long for this, he whispered. You're more beautiful than I ever imagined. For a moment, she melted into the embrace. But only for a moment, because the truth was still there, pulsing between them like a second heartbeat. And it wasn't going away. Derek, she said gently, pulling back. We need to talk. He kissed her before she could finish her sentence. Soft at first, just a brush of lips, warm and trembling with emotion. Then deeper, hungrier. 17 months of longing poured into that kiss. And for a moment, Riley couldn't breathe. Not from shock, but from how much she had wanted this too. But then Derek's hands moved. Down her back, around her waist. He pulled her closer, pressing against her like he was afraid she might vanish. Wait, Riley whispered, her hands on his chest. Please, we need to talk. Later, he murmured against her mouth. We only have 2 hours. Don't waste it. His voice was thick with emotion, but also with something else. Expectation. He had waited so long for this moment. And in his mind, it had always led here. To closeness. To skin. To fulfillment. Riley gently pushed again. No, Derek, I need to tell you something. Something important. He stopped. Not all the way, but enough to blink confused. What's wrong? You're scaring me a little, she admitted. Scaring you? His expression twisted. Not into anger, but something sharper. Insecurity. Doubt. What's going on, Riley? Just say it. She took a step back, folding her arms across her chest, as if to protect herself, or keep herself from unraveling. I haven't told you everything about me, and I should have. A long time ago. Derek's jaw tensed. He'd heard this tone before, the one people used before dropping a bomb. Okay, he said slowly. Tell me now. She took a breath, then another. Her fingers trembled. I was born different, she said. What does that mean? It means I was assigned male at birth. I'm transgender, Derek. Silence. It didn't fall like a curtain. It cracked the air like glass. Derek's face froze. His mouth opened slightly, then shut. His hands, still half raised from where they'd been reaching for her, dropped to his sides. No, he said quietly. No, you're not. I am, Riley said, voice shaking. I've been living as a woman for years. I'm on hormone therapy. I've changed my body in many ways, just not everything. Not yet. Is this a joke? His voice was hollow now. A laugh, but with no joy. You lied to me? I never lied about how I feel. Everything I wrote was true. I love you. You love me. He took a slow step toward her, eyes wide, not with affection, but something fractured. You made me believe. I had a wife. You made me tell everyone in here you were real. I am real, Derek. You're not the person I thought I was writing to. His voice rose. Sharp. Cracked. You're a man. No, I'm a woman, Riley said, softer now. I've always been a woman. I just wasn't born in the right body. He was breathing hard now, jaw clenched, hands curled into fists, a storm building behind his eyes. God, he muttered. The pictures, the letters, the dreams I had. Every night, I was holding on to this idea of you, of us. And now, he turned his back to her, one hand on the wall like he needed it to stay upright. You don't understand what it's like in here, he said. I told everyone. I was proud. Guys here, they looked at me like I was lucky, like I had something waiting for me. You did, Derek, she whispered. You still do. No, he snapped, spinning around. Don't say that. You ruined this. You ruined me. He moved closer, too close, and she took a step back instinctively. Please, she said. Don't do this. Just talk to me. Talk. His voice dropped an octave. 17 months of talking. I was vulnerable with you. I told you things no one else knows. I trusted you. And I trusted you, she said. Enough to come here. To be honest. Even if it cost me everything. There was something in her voice, that ache, that truth, that made him hesitate. His shoulders slumped. For one brief second, the Derek she knew, the gentle, hopeful man from the letters, surfaced. But then it vanished. You made me into a joke, he said quietly now, and I'll never live it down. Then he snapped. It didn't look like rage at first. Just a step forward, a hand grabbing her wrist. Derek let go. His grip tightened. His other hand went to her shoulder. She tried to pull away, but he was stronger. So much stronger. Prove it, he whispered. Prove you're not lying. What are you doing? If you're a woman, then prove it. Right now. No, she said, her voice cracking. Not like this. Not here. But he wasn't listening. The words she had whispered in letters, I love you, I trust you, I need you, were gone. And in their place was a desperate man with pride unraveling and a world closing in. She tried to pull away, but Derek didn't let go. Please, Riley whispered, her voice trembling. You're hurting me. His eyes were wild now, unfocused, flooded with something she couldn't quite read. Not just rage, not just betrayal, but humiliation, and underneath it, fear. Fear of what this meant. Fear of how he'd be seen. Fear that the one person who made him feel like a man had somehow unraveled that illusion. Aren't you hurting me? He said through clenched teeth. You came here, told me you loved me, promised me a future, and then this? Riley shook her head, tears spilling now. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid you'd leave. You should have told me from the start. His grip tightened. You made me a joke. You think these men in here are ever going to let me live this down? No one has to know, she cried. It's just between us. We can figure it out. But he wasn't listening. Not to her voice. Not to her pain. Not to the truth. Somewhere deep inside, the real Derek, the one who signed every letter, yours always, was screaming, telling him to stop, telling him this wasn't love. This wasn't what she deserved. But that Derek was drowning, and the man standing in that room, the one whose masculinity was fragile, whose soul was cracked, whose ego was bleeding, took over. He shoved her backward. She stumbled, landing hard on the bed. He climbed over her, pinning her wrists above her head. Stop it, she shouted, trying to twist away. This isn't you. You don't know me, he spat. I do, she said, choking back sobs. I know who you are. I wrote to him for over a year. Her words pierced him, but not the way she meant, because now they sounded like mockery, like manipulation, like another layer of the lie. If you really love me, he said bitterly, prove it. And then he touched her, not gently, not lovingly, but violently. Her blouse tore. Buttons scattered across the room. She cried out, fought back, begged. Derek, no. Please. You don't want this. Don't tell me what I want, he growled. You don't even know what you are. His hand slid downward, and then he froze. Because then he knew. The truth he'd refused to accept in words was now undeniable in flesh. He recoiled like he'd touched fire. His face went pale, his breathing ragged. God, he whispered. It's true. Riley lay there, crying, her blouse torn, her body shaking, eyes full of fear, but not hate. Never hate. Not even now. She sat up slowly, covering herself with what fabric she could. I'm still me, she said softly. The same person you fell in love with. The same heart. But Derek wasn't looking at her like a person anymore. He was looking at a lie, a betrayal, a symbol of every cruel joke the world had played on him, and every cruel joke the world would now tell about him. You destroyed everything, he whispered, almost to himself. Everything I had. Everything I believed in. Derek, we can still. No, he said, stepping forward. This can't be fixed. Then his hands were on her throat. Just like that. There was no scream. Just a gasp. Then silence. Her hands flew up, clawing at his wrists. Her legs kicked wildly beneath him. But he didn't let go. He squeezed. Tighter. Tighter. The sound of her breath turned to a wheeze. Her eyes wide with terror, with pain, and still, somehow, with love. You ruined me, he growled. You made me feel like I was worth something. And then you took it away. Her hands dropped. Her legs stopped moving. He kept squeezing. He didn't stop until his arms began to tremble. When he finally let go, her body crumpled to the floor like a broken doll. Her eyes were open, but she was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek stared at her, his hands shaking, his chest heaving. He dropped to his knees beside her, reached for her face, still warm, impossibly still. No, 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 no. Riley, wake up. Please wake up. But there was no waking up from this. Not for her, and not for him. Moments later, a red emergency light flashed as the call button activated. He didn't remember pressing it. Didn't remember the guards rushing in. Didn't feel the cuffs slamming on his wrists or the steel boots dragging him down the hallway. All he remembered was her face. Still, silent, gone. The body was removed without ceremony. The room was sanitized. The bed replaced. The cookies thrown out. At Riverside, death wasn't unusual, only inconvenient. The warden barely blinked. The guard shrugged. Another incident, someone muttered. Visitor this time? That's rare. No one said her name. Derek Miles was placed in isolation. A concrete box with no window, no clock, and no sound but the hum of electricity. He sat against the cold wall, hands wrapped around his knees, shaking, not from fear of punishment, but from something deeper. The realization of what he had done. He had killed her, the person who had loved him, the only person who had ever seen him as more than an inmate, more than a criminal, more than the worst thing he'd ever done. He replayed it in his mind again and again. Not the violence, but everything before it. The first letter, the photos, the way she said she'd wait. Her last words, I know you're hurting. I am too. But if we love each other, she had still loved him, even at the end. And that made it worse. 3 hours away, Vanessa Monroe sat in the waiting room, clutching her purse tight against her chest. The visit was supposed to end at 3 o'clock, but Riley hadn't come out. When she asked, the officer just said, Please wait, ma'am. Someone will speak with you shortly. When they finally did, it wasn't a counselor. It wasn't a chaplain. It was a uniformed lieutenant with a clipboard. Mrs. Monroe, he said flatly, I'm afraid I need you to identify the body. He didn't say her daughter's name. He didn't say he was sorry. Just follow me. The funeral was quiet, modest. Only a few came. A cousin who understood. An old college friend who once stood up for Riley when others didn't. 2 women from the community center who hugged Vanessa long and hard without saying a word. There were no crowds, no press, just a mother burying her child, and the truth still too complicated for a headstone. A week later, back at Riley's apartment, Vanessa found a box. It sat under the bed, wrapped in blue twine. Inside, hundreds of letters, each one dated, each one signed. Yours, Derek. She didn't want to read them. It felt invasive, but her fingers moved before her mind could catch up. She opened the last letter Riley had received. It was folded neatly. At the top, my favorite Riley. Only 2 more days. I can't stop thinking about seeing you for the first time, hearing your voice, holding your hand. Nothing will change how I feel. Nothing. Vanessa wept silently. Then she found something else. A single page, not folded, not sent. Riley's handwriting. A draft. Derek, my love. I've been gathering my courage to write this for a long time. I should have done it earlier. But at first, I didn't know how real this would become. And then I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. I was born in the wrong body. That's all it is. A body. But everything I've written to you, everything I've felt, that was real. I love you. I will love you no matter what happens. Yours always, Riley. Vanessa pressed the letter to her chest. The grief came in waves, not just for the loss of her daughter, but for the loss of a future that could have been different. A love that might have survived if the world had been kinder, if Derek had been braver, if Riley had had more time. Back in isolation, Derek held the only thing he was allowed to keep. The last photo Riley had sent him. On the back, she had written, "Love you just the way you are. Forever yours. R." He turned it over again and again until the edges frayed. He thought about the man he'd been in those letters. The man who laughed, who dreamed, who told a stranger he was ready to be a better version of himself. And he realized that man had never made it out of his cell. The man who met Riley that day. The one who let fear and shame and pride devour everything good inside him. That man had never deserved her. He looked down at the photo one last time and whispered, "I'm sorry. I was the lie." Epilogue. No headlines were written. No outrage flared online. There were no protests. No candlelight vigils. Just silence. And two broken people. One buried. One breathing. Both gone.